Hello and welcome back to Smut&Stuff.net. My name is Jess. Sorry, I'm like whispering a tiny bit because my whole family's home and it's super awkward. But I wanted to quickly jump in here and record my January wrap up because we were on vacation at the end of January into the beginning of February, and so I have not done my January wrap up yet. So I apologize for the lighting as well. It is 5:45. The sun has gone down, so I'm using the lights in my upstairs, but let's talk January stats. So in the month of January, I read 3,306 pages across 8 different books, and that equated to 25 hours and 58 minutes of reading time. And I use the Bookly app. I have a couple videos on here that talk about the Bookly app. I use that to track all my reading, and that's where I get that hours read stat from. As far as where I sourced these books, I had no library books for January, 1 book that I owned, 5 books that I borrowed from KU, and 2 advanced reader copies that I got from either the publisher or NetGalley, and I had 1 DNF in January. As usual, we're gonna start with our 3-star reads. My first 3-star read for January was Assistant to the Villain. I am more of a romance girly than I am a fantasy girly, and this one definitely played more into the fantasy than the romance. I did have a great time. I thought that the tension was done really well. However, I was missing a little bit from the romance portion. If you haven't heard of Assistant to the Villain before, we are following our main character, who is a human from like a local town, and she is out exploring, and she basically runs into this guy that she figures out is this like local villain who like terrorizes the town or what have you. He does have some kinds of superpowers, and he's basically like, do you need a job? Because I need an assistant. And so she begins working for him, and they kind of fall for each other in the process. There was a little bit of like a suspense plot, I guess, but it was pretty much like a regular fantasy plot where there's like the thing that's like underlying the main plot where they're like trying to figure out or solve. And again, this one was pretty good, but I did feel like I was missing a little bit from the romance portion, which is why I got a 3-star. My next 3-star read was the first book in 2025 that I read off my 25 to read in 2025 list, and that was Lucky Charm. And I was so sad about this one. First of all, I felt like it was missing so much. I did not sorry, I'm fidgeting with this iPad, so if you hear like that noise, I apologize. I did not realize that this was a clean romance, which is fine. I have nothing wrong with clean romance. However, if you are writing clean romance or if you're reading clean romance, you need to believe the romance without the physical parts, and that was what I was really missing from this one. The author definitely marketed this one as like Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift fan fiction, but the spark was not there. I definitely felt like it was lacking a lot. I was so sad because I was so excited to read this one, but I did give it a 3-star. And my last 3-star read for January was Under Lock. This is my first book ever by Mariana Zapata, and it is about this girl who her like brother and dad are part of like a motorcycle club, and she comes to town and starts working at this tattoo parlor, and that's where she meets Locke, and she kind of starts falling for him. Mariana Zapata is like the queen of slow burn, and this one definitely had a slow burn. Unfortunately, some of the plot was slow as well, and so with a book that's like 500 pages, you're just like, okay, keep going. So I did feel like it just dragged a little bit for me, which did make me kind of not want to pick it up as much because nothing was really happening. That being said, I did love Dex as a character. I really enjoyed their banter. I do wish that this was a series. That's the other hard thing, is that, you know, been here. I'm dying to find a really good motorcycle club series to like just dive right into. If this had been a series, I would have probably been way more hooked, because I definitely loved the characters, like not just our main characters, but like the side characters, the town. I was super into it. I just, oh my goodness, excuse me. I just was not feeling as much of the chemistry as I wanted to between our main characters, and that's why I got a 3-star. And I had one 4-star read for January, and this one was actually super out of my comfort zone. So I got the arc of Cross My Heart from NetGalley, and this is like a thriller suspense kind of situation. I'm guessing it's a thriller. It's definitely not a horror. But you are following our main character who she got a heart transplant, and she finds out who the heart transplant was from, and it was like the wife of this like famous author who lives in the town where she lives, and she kind of like becomes obsessed with him a little bit, and then like crazy things start happening. It's not paranormal or anything like that, but it definitely had like a really good suspense plot. And it was kind of like an unromance version of The Wrong Heart by Jennifer Hartman. Like similar vibes, but not like there is some romance, but the romance is definitely not like the main plot that's going on, I would say. But I gave this one 4 stars for my first like thriller experience. I actually really enjoyed it, and it definitely kept the pages were turning. It was hard to put down, and I had a really fun time, so 4 stars for that. And this one is already out now. It released in January, so you can go grab your copy and check it out for sure. Okay, and before we jump into my 5-star reads for the month, I had one DNF. And I literally just sang praises for this author like 2 seconds ago. But I DNF'd The Thorns Remain by Jennifer Hartman and Shelley St. Clair. I believe this one is a dual author. I DNF'd it at 34%. This one is following our male main character, and it's entirely from his point of view. And basically his wife cheats on him, and so he decides to get revenge on the guy his wife cheated on him with by trying to sleep with his wife. So we're following our main character, Evan, and he's like trying to enact this like revenge plot, and basically get into this woman's pants. I loved the premise of this one, and I thought it was really interesting that it was completely from the male perspective. However, I did not like the male main character. I just like was struggling to root for him in his endeavor, and so it made it really tricky to pick this one up and continue reading it. I found myself just being like, I don't really want to, and so I DNF'd it. But that being said, I have a 5-star read from this author duo also in January. So Jennifer Hartman and Shelley St. Clair had a new release in January called Irreversible, and I got an arc from the authors for this one, and it was a 5-star. It was probably like a 12-star if we're being really honest. In this one, we are following our 2 main characters, and they're both kidnapped and kept as prisoners, and they share like a wall between their cells, and they communicate like through the wall, and they bond, and it's beautiful. If you've ever read Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman, this one for me was better than Still Beating, and I loved Still Beating. So if that gives you any sort of indication of what this book was like, it was so good. It came out on January 31st, so it is available now, so you can go read it. It's so good. It is like 500 pages, but it read so fast. I'm pretty sure I read it in like 2 days. I just could not stop reading it. And I had a flippin' great time. There are some trigger warnings, so definitely check those. But it was so incredible. And I think it's so interesting. This is gonna be a weird tangent, so I apologize. Buckle up. that I DNF'd a book from this author, and I also had like a 12-star read from the same author. It just goes to show, like, you never know which pieces from which authors are really going to resonate with you, so it's always good to try as many as you can to see what your favorites are. But I will not wax poetic anymore about Irreversible. It was incredible, absolutely amazing. I had the best time. I found that the female main characters, like, growth after what they went through was just so intriguing and so, like, realistic in a way that, like, was unexpected, if that makes any sense. And I loved it. I absolutely freaking loved it. So that was my first 5-star read of January, or not like the first one I read, but the first one I'm talking about. That makes sense, right? Okay. And then after reading that book by Jennifer Hartman and Shelley St. Clair, I really wanted to reread the Heart Song Duet by Jennifer Hartman. So I reread An Optimist's Guide to Heartbreak, and in this one you're following, I'm pretty sure her name is Lucy. You're following our main character Lucy, and she comes, like, back to the town where she kind of grew up to sort of rekindle this friendship that she had with her best friend's brother. Her best friend is deceased. She, like, went missing when they were kids. And it is, like, ultimate grumpy sunshine vibes. This is book 1 in the Heart Song Duet. And I still loved it the second read through. I had the greatest time. I love their, like, it is grumpy sunshine, like, to infinity. Like, he is so grumpy and, like, wants nothing to do with her, and she just, like, wants to bring joy to him in his life, and he just wants nothing to do with it. And I absolutely loved it. I still need to read the second book in the duet for my reread, but I read it in 2023 and loved it, and then I read it again this year and still loved it. So that was my second 5-star read of the month. And then my last 5-star read of the month, which was actually the first book that I read in January, was The Marriage Hex. I was not expecting to vibe with this book as much as I did because it is, like, very Halloween vibes, and it's January, so, like, obviously not the Halloween vibes, but I freaking devour this. I don't read a lot of paranormal, and in this one you're following a witch and a werewolf, and when they are teenagers they make this pact to get married when they turn 30, and then they, like, go their separate ways, and then the pact, like, actually forces them kind of back together. It was so good. One thing, and I talked about this in the video that this book was actually for, I'll link it here, my what am I calling it, like, the random number generator chooses my reads or whatever. I call it, like, can I get your number, but that's probably not the real name for it, but I'll link the video here because I talk about it a little more. It's more like a reading blog, but you also get point of view chapters from his werewolf, which is, like, has its own, like, name and personality and, like, all that. And so, like, you get him being, like, annoyed to, like, be with her or whatever because of, like, how things ended when they were teenagers. And then, like, you go to the wolf's point of view, and the wolf is, like, obsessed with her, and he's like, she just smells so good and I just love her, and it's so cute, so cute. And I had a great freaking time, even though it's not October. So I highly recommend A Marriage Hex for sure. The second book, The Fang Arrangement, comes out later this year. I'm pretty positive. I don't know when, but I'm definitely going to be picking that one up. And that one follows, I'm pretty sure, her best friend who is a witch and a vampire. Yes, please. I'm so sad for that. But that wraps up all of my January reads. Thank you so much for tuning in. I was kind of trying to decide if I wanted to do wrap-ups in 2025. Because I'm not sure if y'all like them as much as I do, but then I was like, but if I don't do a wrap-up, you'll never see the books that I read outside of, like, all my reading challenge videos. So I was like, I have to do it, even if you like, well, if you don't like these, you're probably not watching, so it's fine. But if you do like these, I really appreciate you being here, and hit the like button so that I know you were here, and let me know your favorite read from January. I'd love to know, or tell me the first book you read in January. I feel like there's so much pressure on the first book you read in a new year because you just want to kick off the reading year like on such a good note. So let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.